All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. This is the Access ARPA and More webinar, Internship Toolkit for Employers, Building Your Pipeline Through Internships. I am Allison Hatch. I'm the Director of Workforce Development with the Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development. Today, we will hear from Courtney Strayer with UNL Career Services about how to strategically recruit student talent at the university level. She will share about the importance of offering internships, what they can do for your company, and how you can kickstart the hiring process no matter what your experience with interns is. Many of us gathered last week for the Access ARPA webinar titled Winning Internships Employer Panel. We heard about internship best practices from a couple of employers and interns, and next Tuesday will be part 2 of today's internship toolkit for employers, and that one will be titled Retaining Your Talent, and there's still time to register. These internship webinars are meant to help employers across Nebraska develop or improve their internship programs in preparation for new Intern Nebraska grant funding. This past spring, $20 million in general funds were appropriated for the Intern Nebraska program. And additionally, the legislature approved several program changes to Intern Nebraska. The Nebraska Department of Economic Development is working on updating that program and will roll it out with new guidelines in 2023. I imagine many of you are already familiar with Intern Nebraska, but for those of you who have not participated in the program, here's a really quick rundown. So Intern Nebraska provides grants to Nebraska employers to help cover some of the expenses related to student internships. Grants will be up to $7,500 per internship and can reimburse expenses for several things, including tuition reimbursement, internship housing, transportation expenses related to internships, and internship administrative or recruitment costs. For employers with less than 50 employees, the grant can also reimburse the cost of wages paid to the interns. So keep an eye out for this new program rollout, which will happen sometime in 2023. But back to today, we have a really great presenter today, Courtney Strayer. Courtney Strayer is the Employer and Campus Relations Coordinator for University Career Services at UNL. The University Career Services team help students discover career paths of interest and provide guidance and connections on how to break into a variety of fields. The team also coordinates employer relations and career fairs and other events across campus. They serve hundreds of employers to provide meaningful career opportunities for UNL students. Courtney works to make it easier for employers and other external partners to connect with campus for recruiting and hiring needs. She also serves as the liaison between University Career Services and the career community campus-wide. So please use your Q&A button to ask questions throughout the session. We plan to save some time at the end after Courtney has presented to address those questions. So, all right, go ahead and take it away, Courtney.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Allison, for the warm welcome. I'm excited to be chatting with you all today and talk about internships. And so like Allison said, we're splitting this into 2 parts. So today is going to be focused on recruiting your talent, right? How do you get interns to come work for you, right? The million-dollar question, what is an internship? All of that. Next Tuesday, we're going to talk about retaining that talent and how do you make them full-time employees and stay with your organizations for as long as possible. So like Allison said, my name is Courtney Strayer, Employer and Campus Relations Coordinator, kind of your go-to gal for anything related to employer relations, really in the title. And my goal is to make all employers who want to recruit at Nebraska to make their lives a lot easier in doing so and helping provide those connections. So first off, let's kick it off with the million-dollar question, right? What is an internship? So we've defined it as an internship is a learning opportunity offered to a student by an employer where the student gains exposure and practical work experience in a particular field, and the employer gains an opportunity to guide and evaluate talent. Now, what makes that different than a part-time job, right? It's a thin line, I'll be totally honest. But one of the biggest things that are identified by internships through the Department of Labor, and the National Association for Career Education, NACE, is really the education component. So it might not be directly tied to the student's degree. You might hire an anthropology major to do some of your outbound communications work. But does it tie back to the degree that they're receiving as a whole, that Bachelor of Arts? Is it hitting those major degree components that are based kind of through what they would learn? Are they learning communication skills, verbal and written communication skills? and learning kind of a step above what a part-time job offers, right? I'm sure all of us here can reflect on that part-time job that we had, maybe in high school or undergrad, or even currently now. And you learn a lot, right? You learn the customer service skills, you learn how to manage time, you do learn those valuable skills. Think of an internship as a step up from that. You're teaching them the skills that are essential to the organization. You're bringing them in as an operations intern, maybe a human resources intern, and trying to help bring them in at the ground level to kind of bring up the next talent of what's to be offered. So that's the biggest thing I want to emphasize is an internship is just slightly a step above that part-time job kind of qualification. So going in, kind of the why, right? Why should you want to hire an intern in the first place outside of this amazing program and funding that's coming your way? The biggest thing is internships or interns provide you with a continuous pool of highly qualified students to recruit into your organization. You're getting to talk with students who are currently learning exactly what industry you're in. They're in that field, they can bring in maybe new techniques and tricks. They're currently in the weeds of the education system. It also helps you build stronger relationships with the schools you hire interns from. We always say that our students are our best ambassadors. So when students go in and kind of have that internship experience, it helps build that relationship. It's bringing your name to campus from an actual ambassador on campus, very word of mouth. Like I said, too, built-in word of mouth campus ambassadors for your positions and organization. So that kind of we'll talk more about too in a bit in the second part of why it's important to provide them with a great experience. So they want to share with their peers why your organization is the one to work for, why your internship should be sought after. And also you get more time on your schedule as you have an intern to help with tasks that could have bogged down your day. I know I have an intern right now, and once I kind of taught myself how to delegate tasks, which is very hard for me, I've had more time in my schedule to focus on higher level stuff. And I'm also educating a student on the stuff they want to learn. My intern loves data analytics. So let's code data together. Let's talk about what that means and how we can take quantitative results and put it into the big picture. So again, some 4 key reasons why you should want to hire an intern, and there are more. But I think the biggest thing is not only are you giving a student an opportunity to learn and grow in a field that's important to them, you're also bringing in talent that can help make your life easier and allow you to focus on higher level projects. So one thing I do want to talk about, and we get a lot of questions about in our office, is paid versus unpaid internships. So when it comes to internships, paid positions are going to be your best practice, and that's why ARPA funding is essential. It's going to allow you to, especially for those companies 50 and under, to maybe help make paid positions that you couldn't have before. Now, the Department of Labor are pretty much going into it. If for any reason you are curious about an unpaid internship, we highly discourage them. But the Department of Labor has outlined several criteria for unpaid internships. And the biggest thing is the work of the intern cannot replace a full-time employee. The intern cannot be promised any compensation in the future. And the work must tie directly back to the learning objectives for the university they attend. So if you do want to know more, we will have these slides that can be accessed later. We do also have an internship toolkit that will be shared out at the end of the presentation, and you can read more rules on what an unpaid internship qualifies as, and maybe some of the worries of going with them. Again, though, with this ARPA funding, we're hoping that it'll help provide opportunities for those 50 and less to subsidize that cost, and even for more, to help recruit better talent and keep Nebraska talent in Nebraska and bring new people to Nebraska as well. I do want to throw in at this moment, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln only approves unpaid internships that are located in Lincoln, preferably downtown, where students could walk to from campus, require less than 10 hours a week of work, and follow those Department of Labor guidelines. We do also look for a need-based component as to why the internship would be unpaid. Another thing too that we frequently get asked is academic credit and internships. So sometimes employers, such as maybe some of you on the call, will ask, how can I provide credit for the student that's doing the work? So the biggest kind of convolution in that is academic credit cannot be provided by the place of employment. It's received through a course they take at the institution. So maybe we do have students who, whether they're taking, that paid internship, they might want to take a course to help fill that credit so they can have more time for their internship. We do have courses that they can do to help get, I believe they can get up to 3 credit hours for that academic internship pursuit to help balance that time. But the thing with academic credit is it is something that the student pays for. It's just like they would any other class. So that's why sometimes with unpaid internships, like, but I want a sponsored credit, that isn't necessarily an option. Now you'll just kind of be asked to sign documents proving the work and ask you questions for course assignments. Hopefully that kind of helps clear up anything about the different levels of internships and also how academic credit ties into there. A student does not have to get academic credit to do an internship. There just has to be that learning component. So for example, when I was a student at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, I had a variety of internships and I actually did not take academic credit for any of them, just used it as a supplemental experiential learning opportunity. So now that we've kind of talked about what an internship is, how all those kind of building blocks start, let's talk about how you get started, right, while we're all here. So some of you might be just kind of in the middle of starting your internship programs. Some might be completely new, and some of you might be extremely experienced. So this is kind of where we all come together and start talking about it. So the 3 biggest things are set goals and policies, write a plan, and then of course, recruit, recruit, recruit. So the first one is setting those goals and policies. Think about what your intern would be doing and how does that work impact you, your team, and in your organization. I'll use my intern as an example. My intern Haley is the first intern I've ever had and the first really intern for this position. So her title is Employer Development Intern. So when my boss came to me and said, I think you need support in your work, let's look at bringing on an intern. I started to think, what work do I have that they could help with? What kind of projects do I envision them doing? And what skill sets would they need to do that? So some of those questions, what's the main goal, right? I wanted somebody who would help make my employer development tasks a little bit easier. What projects needed the most help? A lot of it was importing data and kind of coding data and kind of making sure we had our employer contacts up to date. And so it would help me a lot when it came to the outreach part for career fairs and all of the things that you might get emails from me about if you're signed up for our mailing list. And then also too, what are you looking for in an intern? Now we do list area of study, but this can be really broad. There are some skills, like if you're hiring an electrical engineering intern, you probably want to hire an electrical engineering student, right? Or somebody in the engineering field who has experience in that work. But one thing we're learning, especially with kind of the shift in work, is sometimes skill sets are more desirable than the major themselves. So I'm an advertising major, so I definitely dabbled in the advertising space and the marketing space. But one of the biggest skills that I learned from my degree was project management and how to kind of systemically make things work, which has helped in my career now. I'm no longer in advertising or marketing, and now I have an education master's in higher education. So things have shifted and changed, but that skill set is really what stays true. So it's important to think about that when you're thinking of an intern. When I was thinking of my intern, I didn't list certain, majors. It was more, I want somebody who's familiar with data, somebody who has experience in customer service since they're going to be working with people. That was what was really important to me. Now, every internship and every need is different. So don't be afraid to, set that hard boundary if that's what you feel comfortable with. But we really do encourage kind of branching out and looking at other departments because you might find some really good hidden talent. So also kind of going into that, who will supervise and mentor this intern, right? Who is going to be the one who is checking in with them, assigning projects, making sure they're getting their work done, and also serving as kind of a mentor, teacher person for them. I am in no means an expert in the work that I do, but I do love getting the opportunity to mentor a young student and kind of coach them through certain projects that I'm working on, giving them that constructive feedback and complimenting them when they're doing something really fantastic. Also going into how will the intern be compensated? And then also, how long do you plan for the internship to last? Now, they all don't have to have a set timeline. It can kind of be flexible. I do mine on a semester basis. So, if my intern is doing great work and wants to stay for another semester, they are more than welcome to. But really trying to look at it as a how long do I need the work for? But if you know that it's a project-based work, it's good to advertise that to that student and to know that going up, saying this is only a 6-month opportunity. So those are some ways to kind of set goals and policies and think about what you're looking for as you start looking for this intern to make the most out of their time. Then it's kind of the next step is write that plan. Take that huge think tank that you just did and bring it into kind of a job description, right? What are you looking for? What will they be doing? Well, envision what the intern will be doing, what their days will be like. What benchmarks do you want them to hit? And this, like I said, this will help write that job description for you. So it kind of sounds like a lot at first, but really once you write down your think tank, add some words, make it a little more formal, you'll have a job description written before you know it. Or connect with your team in human resources if that is not you to help write that job description as well. Another thing too that is often overlooked is think of what space and technology considerations the intern will need. Will they have a desk? We highly encourage it. It helps the interns feel, more like they're an actual employee at the company. But also think of, will they be provided a company laptop or will they need to provide their own? That's something to list on the job description. Where will they work when they're in the office again, kind of reflecting back on those little details that you might not have thought about at first when you're thinking of the overall breadth of the position. So going into the last part, you've set your goals and policies, you've written your plan, and now it's time to recruit. The biggest thing is that job description we've been talking about. And one of the biggest things that I always like to give feedback on with job descriptions is don't just talk about the position in shorthand, right? Mention what it's like to work at your organization, hype yourselves up, sell the brand of your company as well as the position to make it appeal to students even more than it might already do. You never know, a student could have 2 opportunities. They're going to go with the one where they feel the most at home, they feel the most welcomed. You really want to sell the student on the experience. So the more detailed, the better. Let them know about certain company perks and even talking about too, and through the interview, start helping them envision what it could be like to be there full time. If that's an intent of the internship, is that pipeline building aspect. Another thing too is once you have that job description, post your opportunity to Handshake. Handshake is the UNL online database where students and alumni can look for internships and jobs. This is the only job board at the university. We do not accept posters or anything like that. Everything is on Handshake, and I'll talk a bit about more about Handshake in a second. You could also share these positions on LinkedIn and other job sourcing platforms that your organization has had success with in the past. Typically those industry focused, kind of, you all know how you can post jobs the best. But LinkedIn, Indeed, there are so many other ones too, I'm blanking on them, but don't be afraid to mass share them and put it out there. You never know how a student will find your opportunity. And then also begin recruiting the semester before you need the intern. So let's say you wanted to hire an intern for the spring of 2023 or the fall of 2023, or even the summer of 2023, truly, start for that upcoming spring career fair, right? Go into that career season knowing what internship you're going to have, or internships you're going to have. And if you're not there now, do not freak out. That is totally okay. But just start thinking a little bit in advance, right? You're not going to write the position and have an intern 2 days later. It does take a little bit of time. But in between then, kind of those career fairs and events are at set time through the year. But start messaging students directly on LinkedIn or Handshake. LinkedIn, again, is a great tool. You can filter by the schools that they attend. And we hope you want to connect with all University of Nebraska Lincoln students, but start connecting with them and saying, hey, I have this really great opportunity. I think you might be a great fit for it. If you want to talk more, I would love to. It doesn't have to be anything super formal, but just kind of start putting your name out there, build that brand awareness. And also it never hurts to connect with our campus partners. So like it was said in the introduction today, we have University Career Services, which kind of serves as the central hub, but all of our colleges essentially have a career development component in them. So whether it's coaches, career development specialists, I'm here to help connect you with those partners to help get you a direct pipeline into that college of students you might be interested in. So that's kind of the biggest things when you think of recruiting, right? It's not just attending those career fairs and events, it's connecting with those students. Don't be afraid to talk to partners, talk to me. Sometimes we can be your best advocate for students. I do want to always preface, I do not work with students directly, but if you email me, I'm happy to help connect you with a partner that could be a great fit. So that's really the recruiting part of it, right? My biggest advice with this is just don't be afraid to put yourself out there and show how unique your organization is. Companies that we work for are more than just what we do in our day-to-day jobs. It's what makes you wake up and want to come to work every morning. What kind of team building opportunities does it have? What kind of professional development opportunities? It doesn't have to be just the job description. Bring it out to the full kind of essence of what the organization is. So yeah, that's the recruiting part. So going into the hold up, what's Handshake? I'm sure maybe some of you are not familiar, and that is totally fine. Like I said, Handshake is the only UNL affiliated job board for students and alumni. And then if you'd like to get started, you can scan the code and go right to this. It'll take you to our internship toolkit, which I will share out later in this presentation as well. And we have a whole bunch of links that will help kind of get you started on making your employer account, connecting with schools, how do you post a job, all of the good stuff. So if you're not already on Handshake, not even just for internship, but for full-time opportunities, we definitely encourage it. So kind of wrapping up, really the biggest part, I talked much faster than I thought I would. So kind of wrapping up, talking about the recruiting aspect and what that means is we're really big proponents on building that brand. We know that the job market right now is a little intense. Sometimes it's easy to feel like you might be kind of a fish with a lot of fish underwater. So don't be afraid to think outside of the box. It will never hurt to kind of do something maybe a little bit above and beyond. Take the extra time to connect with students, invest in the universities you're recruiting in. Don't be afraid to dedicate that time to help get those insider tips and tricks, right? At the end of the day, your recruiting of your intern is entirely up to you. We do not meddle in with, who you hire, anything. We just want you to hire our students and see the immense value that they have in their education. But we want to help make that transition a little bit easier as well. So again, don't be afraid to think outside of the box and push yourself to do things that maybe your organization hasn't done before, because everything is changing and everything is different. And especially with this funding, you're given a lot more opportunities to do things that might not have been possible before. So that was the first part, which is the recruiting your intern, talking about what everything is. And so I will keep this up so you can all mark your calendars. But I think we'll get into some questions because I think there are a few.
Yes, Courtney, thank you. That was really informative. I do have some questions ready for you. So we'll start off with, have employers changed how they connect with students and recruit students over the last few years? If so, how has that changed?
Oh, 100%. I think, COVID obviously changed a lot of things for everybody. We threw in virtual recruiting, virtual interviews, everything's just a little bit different. And so when you think of how employers are connecting with students, it's kind of like that thing, think outside of the box. I've seen everything from QR codes, information sessions. I think that's the biggest thing too, is when you're at our events or any event at any institution, make your own little QR code or sign up sheet to capture that student information, right? Students are coming in at very fast droves and it's changing a little bit. So don't be afraid to capture that information. Because of education protection, we cannot give out any student information. So I promise we're not trying to gatekeep anything from you. We are just legally entitled to not give you that information. So don't be afraid to, if a student wants to give it to you, take it. Please run with it. Do what you have to do. But again, it's that thinking outside of the box and finding ways to connect with students for more than just what they're studying and what they're interested in, right? Or find what they're interested in. Maybe they grew up in rural Nebraska and they really want to go back. You wouldn't know that if you didn't kind of take the time to get to know them. Even though they came to, UNL, that doesn't mean that they want to stay in Lincoln or Omaha forever. So yeah, I think just don't be afraid to think outside of the box and be bold and be out there.
Okay. And you talked about unpaid and paid internships. So you talked about the proximity to UNL
Yes.
for UNL specific unpaid internship. So the question is, though unpaid internships are only available in Lincoln, are paid internships available statewide?
Yes. So if you are paying the intern, we want them to go wherever they feel most comfortable. It's really just those unpaid internships for that equity component is we don't want to have a student to have to lose money to go to work.
Makes sense. And just a reminder, go ahead and continue to add your questions either into chat or into the Q&A box. I'm looking at both. So for any of you out there who are thinking of a question, it's on the tip of your tongue, go ahead and type it out. But I do have another question for you, Courtney. Some employers will specifically target students who are nearing graduation, and some employers are more open to freshmen and sophomore students. Have you noticed a difference in the way employers recruit students in different years, or a difference in the way internships are structured?
I haven't seen too much of a difference, but I think it's a good time to start thinking of what that difference could be. At our fall career fair, about 35% of our students were freshmen. And when you think about it, this freshman class is the first class to have a traditional start since the current senior class. So they're eager, they're excited to be in person. And so, yes, sometimes it might be annoying when the unprepared freshman comes up without a resume and maybe not dressed the best, but don't dismiss them right away. Because now, I mean, I don't think I would have gone to a career fair at 18 years old. So the fact they're taking that opportunity to show up, you might not be able to offer them an internship right now, but that's that pipeline building starting right for you. Start thinking of maybe smaller internships if that fits in with your organization's needs, or keep them in mind for the next 2 years, because really by the start of that sophomore year, maybe going into that junior year summer, they could be perfectly fit for an internship. So I think that's the biggest thing with recruiting in the two different kind of, nearing graduation and that freshman sophomore class is they're eager, they want to learn. And this is the class that has had the first experiences with COVID, and they're here and they're bold. And I think we were super impressed with the freshmen that we even saw coming through the fair this year.
Interesting. Okay. Another follow-up question to my earlier one about, I think it's related a bit to the unpaid paid. Are virtual internships an option?
Yes. So if a student can do it from the comfort of their own home, now that has to be paid as well. The unpaid internships, I forgot to mention too, do have to have that in-person component. But virtual internships are 100% okay. We have students who intern all over the nation even through those virtual components. And I think with the rise of Zoom and everything that it's brought us, I think there's no reason why a student shouldn't take advantage of that. And we all love to work from home, right? At least once a week. I'm a big hybrid gal myself, so.
How can an organization broaden their recruitment pool at UNL?
Yeah, I think it's connecting with the colleges that you maybe normally wouldn't think of. So that sounds very cheesy, right? If you're hiring a marketing student or a marketing intern, you might want a marketing student. But really, we see students with a lot of crossover of interest. So they might be an English major, but they love kind of like the long form writing, and they're great with grammatical skills, which is something I feel like I struggle with half the time. And I have the advertising degree. So don't be afraid to kind of dip into those other programs. Don't be scared if a resume comes across your desk and it's, they're an anthropology major or a psychology major, but they have that experience listed or that skill set. Even if they're, social media chair for their sorority, right? It's experience that's valued. Bring them in for an interview and see what they have. The skills that are taught, and one thing I love about being a university alumna is just how broad my education was, and I was able to double dip and find my passions through all of my experiences. So I think going through that is how you can broaden your recruitment pool, is not being scared when those different majors come across your desk, but also, like I said, connect with our college partners. We have career coaches in our College of Business, College of Engineering, but we also have them in our College of Arts and Sciences, College of Education and Human Sciences. So don't be afraid to see what's out there, because you'd be shocked how many people want a career change.
And you mentioned this, and I want you to expand a little bit more. So what services are set up to support students in their career development? And you have all of these different colleges that are offering career services. So like what's the kind of package that's offered to students?
Yeah, so it kind of is based around their colleges to start off. So let's say, a student is in the College of Arts and Sciences, their experience will be different than the College of Education and Human Sciences. But one cool thing is, for our College of Business, they all go through the BSAD kind of career prep curriculum. So for every single year, they're taking a career focused course. College of Engineering, they take Engineering 10, Engineering 20, which is all about their professional career development. Every student in the College of Education and Human Sciences has an internship requirement or a practicum requirement by the time they graduate. And a variety of other things too that come through. A lot of our colleges as well are working more to support that internship and experiential learning development. Many of you are familiar with the University of Nebraska system. Our president, Ted Carter, just announced that this is the year of the internship for Nebraska. So finding those ways to connect employers with our students is on the forefront of all of our minds. And our office specifically, since a lot of the coaching has gone to the colleges, we've actually started to partner with more of our diversity-based organizations on campus. So we now have peer career coaches in our William H. Thompson Scholars Program, or more known as our Buffett Scholars. OASIS, our Office of Academic Success and Intercultural Services. TRIA, which is more like, prevention for students, but really helping kind of making that student ambassador pipeline program to help make career readiness more of a comfortable conversation, no matter what background you come from. I always think I was super fortunate growing up that I had a mom who worked in corporate America. So I knew what it was like to buy a blazer and write a resume by the time I was 18. But that's not an experience that every student has. So we're trying to bridge that equity gap a bit and help connect students with opportunities that they might not have thought of earlier.
Okay, and I have one more question. So if there's other questions out there, now's your chance. So for employers who are already tight on staff capacity, what do you think is the most effective but time efficient tactic to recruit applicants for their internships?
Yeah, I think it's you sometimes maybe like reshifting priorities. That's really hard to say. I know I work for a government agency and, we wear a lot of different hats. So I'm saying this with the utmost sympathy for being a tight team. But bringing those interns in, we rely on our interns heavily in our office, just to help with kind of those projects that aren't below us by any means, but a student can do, and a student is currently learning how to do, and can probably do it quicker than I can half the time. So it's thinking about it and also being strategic. That pre-planning stage will really help make the process a lot easier. So if you're going in to, if your one career fair day, make the most of it, make it the day, and put all of your kind of not eggs in a basket, but put yourself out there and be unique. Sometimes too, if you tell your teams like, hey, let's maybe take 20 minutes to send LinkedIn messages to 5 qualified students we find. It doesn't have to be all day efforts, but just trying to intentionally source. And again, with that plan, you should have an idea of what you're looking for, what qualifications, skill sets, all of that. So.
And I had another question come in.
Perfect.
So thanks to the audience member. So it was a question about Intern Nebraska. And so Courtney, I don't know how closely you've been working with Intern Nebraska or following Intern Nebraska. If you have thoughts on how that's working, I can provide kind of another update on the funding and the application process too. If maybe I'll start and then you can add in anything. So what I know about Intern Nebraska, the Department of Economic Development is currently using the legislation that was just passed this spring to formulate new rules or new guidelines for the program. So they're in the process of doing an RFP that will potentially draw a nonprofit or multiple nonprofits to help administer the program. So that'll happen potentially yet this fall. And then sometime in 2023, they don't have an exact date or timeline provided, but sometime in 2023, they will roll out the new guidelines. So what I know are that eligible students are 11th and 12th grade high school students, students enrolled in a college, university, or certified training institution, people who apply for an internship within 12 months after graduation. So the eligible students definition is very broad. Previously, students had to be full-time students to be eligible if they were either in that high school or college category. they do not have, in the new guidelines, they do not have to be full-time students, or the new legislation, sorry, the guidelines aren't out yet, but in the new legislation, it does not require students to be full-time. There's also a much more broad list of what could qualify for reimbursement for internships, and that now includes tuition reimbursement, internship housing, transportation expenses, administrative costs, recruitment costs. And then a big change is that now only available for businesses with less than 50 FTEs. Those businesses can use it for reimbursement of the cost of wages paid. So it used to be wages paid was the primary use of Intern Nebraska funds. Now it's only an eligible expense for reimbursement for businesses or employers with 50 or fewer FTEs. Sorry, actually not even 50 or fewer. It's fewer than 50 FTEs. The maximum grant is 7,500. And that can, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it can be up to like 100 interns now. So yeah, a lot of potential internships out there being funded. That's what I know. Courtney, have you worked with Intern Nebraska? Have you worked with internships that are funded with Intern Nebraska? Has that worked well? Have any thoughts?
To be totally honest, I'm not super familiar. But I think it's because we work with students so much, is sometimes it's best, like they don't really know how the sausage is made and they just know they have a great opportunity. So sometimes I feel like that's just the best thing, that our main focus is we love to hear when students just have an opportunity that changed their lives and really made them confident about their career paths.
Yeah, sounds good. And another question came in. So do you feel that finding housing for interns is a struggle?
I've heard this, yes. And so one thing too, I do want to tout, one of our sponsors is the Columbus Area Chamber of Commerce. And so they have, Sarah and I have had plenty of conversations just kind of talking about so Sarah, I think, is on this call, so I'm going to shout Sarah out. But they have done some really great work just to help build throughout their community connections and finding housing for interns. So it's owned by the chamber, but it allows, those chamber connections to help get housing for their interns, especially, being in Columbus, Nebraska. You might not, if you just pull from Columbus, you might not have the full pool that you're looking for. So it allows those students who are already moving somewhere that's different from maybe where they're from to find comfort and find community within there. So yeah, I think that is something, though, that's been a huge challenge. I know, living in Lincoln as a single young professional, sometimes it's definitely a pill of a cost to swallow. So that's a huge thing too, why it's more than just paying those wages, right? If you have an intern going from Omaha to Lincoln, help with their gas, because it might be cheaper for them to live at home, or help factor that into that salary consideration. So yes, but I do think that that's one thing that has been talked about, is just kind of like the housing in general, and kind of making it, I feel like we all remember moving into our first apartment as well. And just that, like, you're young, you're learning. So helping to make that experience for them is a lot easier.
That's great. All right. Well, I think that wraps up the webinar for today. I really enjoyed hearing from you today, Courtney. I hope everyone got out as much as I did in today's webinar. You will receive the slides and the video recording and a link to the internship toolkit for this info session in an email coming soon. So, and Holly, if you could take what I just posted to you in the chat, if you could share that with everyone. I don't think I was able to share with everyone. So coming soon, you will have some information about the part 2 of this internship toolkit for employers, titled Retaining Your Talent. So there's a link that you can use to register for that. The next webinar is coming up this Tuesday at 12 o'clock from 12 to 1. So in the chat box, hopefully soon, you will receive a link to that, as well as Courtney's contact information and that internship toolkit for easy reference. So, all right. Well, I think go ahead, take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.